Life Audio.
Hey, Dr. Bill Sinyard here with God's Love for the Unlovable and Gospel Rant podcast. I'm finally at my number one Old Testament prayer. Thanks for all of those who stuck with me in the summer journey through or at least my top 10 prayers of the Old Testament. I mean, there's a lot we could have chosen for number one. Psalm 51 might have been a good choice. Daniel's prayer for Jerusalem. Jonah's whale belly prayer. But in my book, nothing approached this prayer from its uniqueness, its singular grasp on the vast celestial love of God for the unlovable, the unloved, and the unlovely. And FYI, as far as I know, this prayer is on no one else's list of the top 5 or top 10 or top 20 or even top 50 prayers. That, in my opinion, will say a lot about the state of Christianity today. I hope you'll agree. So those of you in the know will have likely heard the types of psalms in the Bible. There's the thanksgiving, there's pilgrimage, royal, praise, wisdom, imprecatory, and even enthronement psalms. But there is one set of 3 verses that I would describe as a desire psalm or prayer. That's Song of Songs, chapter 1, verses 2 to 4. And here they are. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the maidens love you. Take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers. We rejoice and delight in you. We will praise your love more than wine. How right they are to adore you. Well, all right. Surprise is up. We're going to dig in deep. Welcome to God's Love for the Unlovable and Gospel Rant podcast. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So listen to this poem and tell me what you think and where it comes from. Bridegroom, you have captivated me. Let me stand trembling before you. Bridegroom, I would be taken by you to the bedchamber. Bridegroom, let me caress you. My precious caress is more savory than honey. Song of Songs, right? No. Just a reminder, here's the Song of Songs in the Bible. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. Take me away with you, let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his bedchambers. So no, the poem that I read comes from a very well-known, at least at that time, the love song of Shu Sin. The love song of Shu Sin was written in Sumer, that's Abraham's home, as early as 2000 BCE, well over a millennium before the Song of Songs was written. We have had the love song of Shu Sin for a long time, but it was largely written off by biblical scholars as being part of an annual pagan ritual or celebration in a king's court. But now we have come to believe that they were originally just common street love songs that were used for ritual. They were ritualized, right? Ditties that were sung originally in taverns and fields and playgrounds by real people. It appears that it was everywhere, making up a love song genre, right? That was wildly familiar to people even in Israel during the time of the kings. So for fun, let's put ourselves in the sandals of a young person in Israel, 8th century BCE. Think of that person as a young, anxious teen living in Israel. Just before the Assyrians came and destroyed it all, girls would get betrothed and married when they were only 12 to 14, just after their first period. So if you're that young girl, and as you look at your reflection, you may struggle to see what kind of woman could possibly evolve from your thin, spindly body. You're just beginning to grow taller and adding curves where curves should be. And recently you had your first monthly period. You likely are internally asking the very same questions that today's young teens are asking. Am I attractive? Am I lovable? Is there anyone out there for me? Will I find someone who really loves me as I am? Will I be a good wife and lover? Well, here's where the fun begins. In your village, as it was for generations before, once betrothed, you're swept into a glorious, glamorous, romantic rite of passage. It's like a Hollywood rom-com narrative structure, a love story where you take on the persona of a royal queen. And no matter who this woman was or what tribe she came from, whether she was attractive, wealthy, smart. For a moment, she pretends she takes on the role and becomes a queen. She is injected with the crack cocaine of an ancient love story that has captured so many others before her. It is now her story. This is the all too common rite of passage that God incarnates to communicate his incongruous love for the unlovable. The Song of Songs, chapter 1, verses 2 to 4. By the way, the rest of the book. So if you're that girl, you heard these songs sung since you were a young girl. You giggled when you heard some of the risque banter, even before you understood what the metaphors even meant. So if she was a Gentile, she may break into her community's variety of the Sumerian hit songs that rejoice the heart. Bridegroom, you've captivated me. Let me stand trembling before you. Bridegroom, I would be taken by you to the bedchamber. Bridegroom, let me caress you. But if you were a Jew in Israel, it would sound like this. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. And notice she switches to a royal we. And why? Because, first of all, it's in the ancient songs, but it's because she becomes a queen. And so this is royal. Everyone would have understood this when she says, we rejoice and delight in you. We will praise you, your love more than wine. How right they are to adore you. I am suggesting that all, or at least most, of the young Jewish girls and boys who heard the Song of Songs would have recognized this prologue. They wouldn't have been troubled by the sexual imagery. It would have proclaimed the good news to God's unlikely bride, and that's us, men and women, who he actually adores, as we are. The bride queen is in the arms of her lover, husband, king, and she loves it. She feels loved. She's crying out for more everything. It's good. She feels loved for a moment. She has forgotten her fears and insecurities, her dark secret and hidden sins. It doesn't seem to be causing the king any hesitation to embrace her. And we'll find out that she does have a problem that renders her unrighteous, so much so that no righteous king would ever associate with her. And yet, this king does. In fact, the gift of her love changes her, purifies her. In fact, the gift of his love changes her, purifies her. That's what grace does. We have just described worship, a desire poem, a desire psalm. Yeah? The rightful glorious king of all creation loves you so much that he intentionally went, found and incarnated popular, very familiar love ballads sung by generations of actual girls and boys in villages and tribes scattered from the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley, Anatolia, modern Turkey, the region of Judea, all the way to Egypt and beyond. His choruses would sound familiar, but be far better, imbued with the power of the gospel. The songs not only express the true love for the unlovable, but the unlovable are made to feel loved again. The world just sucks that out of us. This is part of the good news of the gospel. That's why I picked this as number one. If you think about it, it makes so much sense that God would use a genre that was so familiar to regular people. And why? He didn't want the message to be missed or absconded by the theologians or the educated elite or the wealthy. Now, to be clear, I am suggesting that God began with mere rough bawdy street ditties, earthy rhythmic strains that one might hear in bars and workers in the fields. But what God does with the genre is magical, spiritual. The portrait of love he paints is nothing like anything that has been there before. And here's the point. When God sung these songs into canon, into the Bible, everyone then knew the tune. They knew the imagery. They knew the point. God was speaking his heart for his surprised, fearful, and unlikely bride who had a reputation of looking for gross counterfeits anywhere and everywhere. That's us when Jesus finds us. Slaves in Egypt might have heard that there was a holy God who loved slaves. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. For your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like a perfume poured out. No wonder maidens love you. No wonder your children love you. Your people love you. Your bride loves you. Take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers. Do you sense the desire for more intimacy, more of an experience of the love of God? Why is all this there in the Bible? Look, keep the testimony of the Queen in your head as you listen to another email I found on the web from a single Christian woman, and you can see the need, all right? This is from her. Quote, I'm a 32-year-old single Christian woman, and I have exhausted all options for dealing with the agonizing loneliness of my life. I paid a Christian counselor for months to listen to my problems, but I never received the guidance or advice I desired, except a suggestion that perhaps I'm too hard on myself. I'm involved in two small groups, one which is a singles group. I participate in community service with Christians, and I attend and participate in church. I have a career, a house, a car, everything. I have pursued all my interests, including traveling extensively. I make efforts to meet new people and form new friendships. Still, I come home to an empty house every night, no matter how involved and social I am. And yes, I have had roommates in the past, but with negative consequences. I haven't been on a date for years, and I worry I must be a freak, though I know the dating pool of single men my age is very small in my church. I ask people what glaring character flaw is causing this suffering, but no one gives me an answer. I'm healthy, I dress well, and people say I'm attractive, so I know it's not a physical appearance problem. Despite all of my best efforts and my faith in Christ, I am directionless and lost. My self-esteem and courage are weakening. I don't know where to turn, and I feel increasingly discouraged and sometimes hopeless. All I can utter to God oftentimes is, why aren't you helping me? What else am I supposed to do? Do you have any new perspective on this? Close quote. She's not alone, and men too. So yeah, I do have a new perspective on this. So yeah, here's the thing. I suggest that over the last decades at least, our Christian message has shifted to truth that is still true, but comes across indifferent, uncaring, and seem to have little power or expectation of making real people who have to live in today's increasingly lonely and frightening world feel more loved and secure, and women and men together. Truth can be true and yet largely irrelevant, right? 2 + 2 is 4, but what difference does that make to a teen who's had to live with an abusive parent or this poor woman? Jesus was always true and always relevant, right? Ask the woman at the well, ask the condemned prostitute, ask the rich young ruler, ask the woman whose son had died, ask the daughters of Lazarus, ask Lazarus. Yeah? Here's child psychologist Yuri Bronfenbrenner. Every child, every person, I would add, needs at least one adult who is irrationally crazy about him or her. Well, I've just put the gospel in modern language for Christian, but you may not have recognized it. If you're a Jesus follower, there is at least one person who is irrationally crazy about you. God? Jesus? The Holy Spirit? Is that relevant? Yeah, right. I'm not speaking about your partner, your spouse. I'm speaking about a person who is both God and human, 100%, Jesus, right? Who adores you more than anyone else ever has. And nothing you've done or haven't done or that has been done to you will ever change that. He loves you as you are. As much as the Father loves the Son and the Son loves the Father. Now, we may not be experiencing it as much as we would like, but Jesus purchased it for us, even with all of our flaws and issues. So now we may not be experiencing it as much as we would like, but Jesus purchased it for us. And really, there's people, Christians here and out there who could hear this and desperately want to experience that. Maybe that's you. We're all looking for such a love in all the wrong places. So here's the thing. The more you experience this love of Christ, the kisses purchased for you 2,000 years ago, the less hopeless you will feel, a little or a lot. The less lonely you will feel, a little or a lot. The less shame, the less fear, the less guilt. The perfect love that casts out fear, the less lack of enoughness. The more love you will feel towards others. And we can do this. This is equally true and relevant for men and women alike, but there it is. So may I say to the person in the email, the woman, and you and I, at this moment, you, beloved child of God, are his bride in good standing. God is delighting over you, but in all likelihood, you have stopped hearing the music. Where the queen says, keep on kissing me, you are only feeling what happened to the kisses. Is there something wrong with me? I don't know how all of this fits with your concept of God's love. I mean, can we use such human words as feelings and love and desire related to God? I mean, he's spirit, right? He's not driven by coarse human erotic burning, right? Well, if you want to hear more, check out my first book, co-authored by Colleen Pepper, called The Kiss of God. That's on Amazon. We go into a lot of detail on the Song of Songs. You may really enjoy it. So that brings me to the end of this series on the top 10 prayers of the Old Testament. Here they are again. Number 10, Psalm 62. Number 9, Moses' and Miriam's Song of Victory in Exodus 15. Number 8, Agur's prayer in Proverbs 30. Number 7, Psalm 51. Number 6, Exodus 33, Moses' Take Me prayer. Number 5 is Hannah in 1 Samuel. Number 4 is Solomon's dedication of the temple. Number 3 is Psalm 88. Number 2 is Job's repentance in chapter 42. And finally, number 1, the Song of Songs, chapter 1, verses 2 to 4. This is probably a good place to take a break for a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back, and I'll promote the next series. You're going to love it. All right? We'll be right back. I've got a new series coming up that I'm so excited about. It's called Vagabond Diaries. I have so much enjoyed writing children's fantasy books. By the way, we won a prize for being the #1 children's fantasy book. We got great feedback from adults as well on the stories. So I wondered what it would be like to write fresh, creative short stories on biblical characters, principles, teachings that would help us today hear them afresh. C.S. Lewis once said that if he had to do it all over again, he would write more children's books. Why? Because adults read them. I agree. And adults' lives are changed. I'm not suggesting that these are the Bible, the words of God, right? Not at all. Or even strict sermons on verse by verse, word by word. These are stories that faithfully capture the essence of the account and ignite the creativity of the readers. And hopefully the Spirit will use that to bring those canonical truths to light. And we're going to have some fun doing it, yeah? You'll see what I mean. And give me some feedback. What did you hear? What did you get out of them? Who did you pass it on to? Hey, let's have some fun and change lives in the process. The first Vagabond Diary is just called Jana. We'll see you next time. Take heart, child of God.